All right, we are recording. Welcome everybody back to another Serious Angler podcast, episode number 111. We're having on another fellow podcast host, Mr. Andrew Hayes. We're going to get on and talk about a whole bunch of different stuff because I have a lot of questions. And I know just from our talk offline here, we're going to go down a lot of rabbit holes, and I'm pretty excited for that. So before we get into the podcast today, huge shout out to Douglas Outdoors for sponsoring the Serious Angler podcast. I really appreciate that. Appreciate your guys' support. I'm pretty sure I will have a 610 3XF in my hands for the next week straight, every single day at the St. Lawrence River, pretty much just throwing a drop shot, and that's probably all I'm going to do. Drop shot or a Ned rig on that 610. Also, huge shout out to Queen Tackle. We'll be throwing their drop shot weights exclusively. And it's going to be an interesting week. We're going to be in the land of the giants, or as Brandon Palnick likes to call it, which is my new favorite saying for smallmouth, is meat nuggets. And I ordered the shirt. I don't know if you guys saw it, but he made a shirt called the Meat Nuggets. And I instantly ordered that because I like the term meat. I don't know what it is, but hopefully we go to St. Lawrence River, sack up some big old meat nuggets, and have a good finish at the Fed tournament on Sunday. But without further ado, we're going to get on our guest here, Mr. Andrew Hayes. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, buddy? Thanks for having me.
Of course. I want to say that was one of my roughest intros I've done in a while. I don't know why. I think the meat nugget thing got in my head.
I like the meat nuggets. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to start saying that too.
Dude, I was watching. I don't know if you watch Palnick's channel, but that premiere, and I heard him in one of his fish catches, him saying like it's a meat nugget, and I'm like, did he really just call that thing a meat nugget? And I'm like, I kind of like that, and I was joking. And at the end, they're like, yeah, we're making merch, and one is going to be a meat nugget shirt. And I was like, wonder when that's going to come out. And I see him post it today, a meat nugget shirt, and I'm like, he's like, they're only making 50 shirts. So I'm like speeding to my phone to buy this shirt. It's only like $20, but it just has hold on, let me see if I can. I'm going to pull it up right now. Put it on the screen.
It's one of those things that you just can't believe you've never heard before. I feel like I've heard every term for a bass ever. Every stupid name has already been thought of, and then someone like Brandon comes out and just yells meat nugget, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
I think, right here, meat nuggets. He's
that's
just
great.
So quirky, so it's like, but that's amazing. I already ordered it. It's on the way. I cannot wait to rock that shirt when I go for smallmouth.
That's awesome.
But dude, so for people who may not know of you or your podcast, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you got into fishing. What's that first bass you caught? What's the story? And then who got you into it? Who's the reason we're obsessed the way we are now?
So I don't really have like a super cool story or anything like some of these people do. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Southern Ohio, where you didn't really have a lot of choices of what to do growing up, right? You rode your bike around, you went fishing, you did all the kind of normal rural kid things, and fishing was just part of it. So we grew up, when you left the house at 9 a.m. and your mom and dad locked you out and basically said, go play till dark. Like, what did you do? You rode your bike around, you went fishing, you took your fishing pole with you with your buddies, and that's kind of what you did. So yeah. Yeah. That's the other thing to think about. You would never let your kids do that now, probably in a town or a city or something. You're not going to say, hey, come back in 12 hours and I have no idea where you're at. I don't have a tracker. I don't have a phone. But it was just kind of what we did in the summer, especially is, you just rode around and you fished. And I kept doing that my whole life, throughout college and stuff like that. It was something that was definitely a part of what I did, but I definitely wasn't at that point where I always talk to people too about there's always that moment where you realize that you took a turn and you went from, oh, this is something fun to do every once in a while to I wake up on a nice day and I can't, I think about anything but what water I'm hitting today. Am I ready? What gear am I taking with me? All that kind of stuff. You just get obsessed with it. You said that earlier, and that's a good word for it. Mm-hmm. That all started maybe 8 or 9 years ago. I was probably maybe 20. And I just, I was out one day just fishing like I normally do, throwing like a 5-6 ultralight for crappie on a weekend, just killing time. And actually this fish right behind me, what way do I do it that way? It's up on the wall, just hit a rooster tail while I was crappie fishing. Took me probably 10 minutes to get in. And you're talking like 4 to 6 pound line, probably 16th ounce rooster tail and a micro light rod. And it was that fish, I think, that just set it off for me and was like, oh my gosh, like I just took a turn. So it was a fish. It wasn't a certain person or a certain other experience. It was really that fish up on the wall. And now, unfortunately, I always tell people like that fish is also one of my biggest regrets. I had it mounted. I was stupid. I didn't know what I was doing. All I saw was the biggest fish I've ever seen in my entire life. It was, I weighed it with a luggage scale. I didn't even have a, a digital scale, and it topped out over 6. So it's between 6 and 7. And, I took it home and I was like, I need to get this mounted. And, now I wish I would have known about replica mounts and all kinds of stuff. I wish that fish was still back in the body of water I caught it from. But it was a learning experience. I know now I'm a lot more. So I think it made me a better angler in general, and a lot bigger conservationist, I guess, because now I have the regret of killing that fish. So it taught me a lot. I owed a lot to that fish that's behind me on the wall. And that was really where I took a turn. I was like, okay, I want to get into this. I want to learn, everything there is to know about gear and tactics and how to target these fish. I know these fish are here somewhere. And that's where that obsession really began. And I've been on that road ever since. Like I said, it's probably been, I'd say maybe 8 years now, since that happened. And now I eat, sleep, breathe fishing. That is what I think about all day long. Everything from taking the kayak out for 12 hours a day and paddling upstream and upriver just to try and find some smallmouth, to getting in a creek and waiting, for 10 hours a day and walking all day long. Like, it's really all I do in my free time now. So that was really where that obsession began, was one certain fish just kind of lit that spark in me.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah. You make a good point there, is everybody has that turn. And as we're speaking right now, I'm trying to find if I ever posted this picture. But you said you felt bad that you kept that 6-pounder. I think I have what I think now is a 5-pound smallmouth when I was much younger, and we had brought it back to show everybody, and it had died. And I was thinking about it now, and it's like, what a jerk! I would hate me. But no, like, everyone has that turning.
It's part of growing up. It's part of learning. That's part of your journey. So that's. One fish made that sacrifice to make me a better angler for the rest of my life. I'm okay with that.
No, you make it. That's a great point. But like you said, though, everybody has that turning point that kind of clicks where you're like, okay, I'm hooked. Like, it can go the same for sports, right? So like, we'll take hockey, for example. I'm a huge hockey fan. Like, that first goal you have is like, you're hooked, and now that's all you want to do. It's all you want to focus on. You spend all your time just training, getting yourself better, because all you want to do is play hockey. It's the same way. It's an addiction that fuels you, and it turns into a lifestyle. And that's the same reason why we're both sitting here today. So it's a pretty cool thing.
It's an addiction where there are so many worse things that you could, try to spend all of your time about and think about all the time. It's like, it makes me a better person. I know it does, because I get out of the house. That's the other thing nowadays. Everybody's so connected. Everybody's on their phone, on their, computer, whatever they're doing all day long. Everybody's so connected. And to get away from that for, even 4, 5, 6 hours at a time, it's like, it makes me a better person. It lets me decompress. It's my holy time. It's my, okay, forget work, forget email, forget everything, just decompress, let everything go, and go back to that kind of primal instinct of like, okay, I have one goal, and it is to, trick another animal into eating something that is not real. And that is all I'm thinking about right now. Everything else in the world melts away. So, I think people need something like that. Everybody has a vice like that, whether it's a good or bad vice, or whether it's, fishing or it's sports or something. Everybody's got it. So I think this just happened to be ours.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's also one of those cool things too, is, it can kind of coincide with hunting. It's a life skill, or it's a survival skill. So say, everything goes to crap, we're going to be the ones that are, we're doing great. We're going to be fine because we know how to survive in the wild.
Right.
It's cool because you make a great point, with the technology and the way things are going. And obviously you're a podcast host. So like, we have an appreciation for technology, but it's based on an appreciation for something that's completely opposite of technology. It's getting out there, getting by yourself, getting time to think to yourself, to kind of get away from everything, to be, one with nature. So it's a cool little essence there. I think that's why we're all hooked on it.
I think of the technology too as kind of a way for us to get more people out doing what we're doing and inspire more people and teach more people. I think that's the thing that sometimes, and we'll probably get into this later, but I think sometimes the media, the fishing media that's, now on YouTube and stuff like that is starting to get away from is it's getting more, I don't know, away from teaching people and inspiring people and getting them out. It's more about clicks and clickbait and sponsors and all this kind of stuff. It's like getting back to giving. That's what I have a passion for. I have a passion for giving people information that took me a long time to figure out myself, and giving that to them and arming them with that to make them a better angler. So not telling them where to fish or exactly what to throw or spoon feeding them, but giving them that information to say, okay, I can listen to this 30-minute podcast I put out today, and when it's over, I feel like I learned something and I can apply that, and I'm going to be a better angler because of it. So that was the reason I kind of started that podcast, was just to have an informative, sort of media out there to maybe teach some people stuff that I feel like it took me a while to figure out.
Yeah, no, that's something I really wanted to go in depth with about your show, but you make a good point. But I also think that there's a fine line there too, is, you have your YouTubers, your tournament anglers, but I also think now you're seeing, so obviously you have your tournament anglers and then you have YouTube. And I think you see a bunch of different niches in YouTube where you have your tournament anglers who post almost strictly just tournament content, trying to teach. And then you have your non-tournament anglers but are experienced, that know what they're talking about, can teach, like Tactical Bassin or Fluke Master, different things along the lines of that. And then you have like your entertainment. And that's like, you could go say like the Guggen Squad. But I think one thing that they do, and we brought them up a bunch in the show, and they get great. They deserve credit for it. But the fine line is they do a bunch of silly stuff. They do a bunch of what you want to call like stupid or childish, but at the same point in time, they're still getting kids out fishing. And I think one thing that doesn't get talked about is they help the fishing industry, driving kids to buy fishing equipment, lures, rods, whatever. But they're also, I think one thing that no one has really mentioned is they're driving the technology industry in the form of GoPros, game cameras, like, along the lines of that, because they see these guys doing it and they see them posting it. And they're like, I want to do that. So next birthday, Christmas, whatever, like, Mom, Dad, I want a GoPro. And, now that they're sharing it. But it's cool to see that, and not just going out and, because you see some of these channels, and I mean, I'll throw shade here because it has nothing to do with fishing. Like, you see like a Logan Paul or Jake Paul type of stuff. What good is that going to do a kid watching that besides screw up their mind? I mean, at least you see like a Parrot doing dumb stuff, but he still knows how to teach kids and know how to get them to go out fishing. I mean, he posted a video today of just finding a random person and say, hey, want to go fishing? So it's a good mix for, I think they really appeal to the youth, but it's cool to see how the different niches we have now. But it's, like you said, though, there is a fine line.
And anytime someone does what they did, I get asked all the time, what do you think of these guys? What do you think of the Guggen Squad? And it's like, they deserve all the credit in the world because they pushed a ice age old industry into doing new things. They took a GoPro, or probably back in the day, a camcorder when they first started, and they started making fishing videos, and they were just the kid next door that, you felt like you knew and went fishing, and you could watch someone else go fishing when you couldn't. You could kind of live vicariously through them. And they found a niche, and they basically said, hey, there's a opportunity here, and they ran with it, and they did amazing things. Kudos to them. Like you said, they get people outside, they get more people into our industry, more people into the sport, which then means more money coming into the sport as a whole, which means more other opportunities, which means growth, which means everything. So, like them or not, they stimulated our sport, and that's definitely a good thing. The only issues sometimes that I have with, and it's not just them, it's everybody, is eventually people get to a point where you start to lose that authenticity a little bit of what got you popular in the first place and why people liked you in the first place. It's call it selling out, call it whatever you want, but everybody's going to get to that point. And I don't think you really need to blame those guys, because once they get to a point where they're trying to make that their full-time job, you have to make money somehow. You have to monetize what you're doing somehow. So I don't fault them at all. The only thing that I think sometimes might do kids a disservice is when you have someone like that. Be careful how I say this. When you have someone like that has like almost a monopoly on the younger generation watching fishing media, and they all team up and they're all with the same brands and the same companies and stuff like that, is you're going to get a generation of kids that grow up thinking that you can only use favorite rods and Guggen baits, and they're not being exposed to all of those other things, because in those videos now they're blurring out Shimano on the reel. They're not talking about the other brands that they're using of lures and stuff like that. So you get these kids that don't get a very wide range of like, oh, here's the gear that's available. Here's all my options for crankbaits or, bladed jigs or things like that. They're only seeing one brand. And that's kind of why I wanted to start that podcast too, was just from day one, I said, I don't want to work with, individual brands of lures or things like that. Cause I want to be able to talk honestly about, hey, I like this, Strike King KVD 1.0, and I don't like this 6-inch. I'm just making stuff up here. But, I want to be able to say brands, and I want to be able to tell people an honest opinion on certain things. And if I think somebody's product sucks, I want to be able to say somebody's product sucks. And if I love it, I want to be able to say I love it. And I don't want to be beholden by that. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of look for now, is just an honest, sincere review on stuff without having to censor things or be, oh, I can only talk well about this brand of tungsten because I get a 10% discount from them and all that kind of stuff. So, I think that's important, is to, even if you like those guys, to branch out of the media that you consume, because especially if you're young, you're going to only see certain products, and there's so much more out there. And that's what I love talking about.
Yeah. No, I agree, but I'll also disagree with you in the fact that I think you're correct where all they show is, and if you want to say, they really have monopolized the YouTube game, where they attract a lot of that generation. And I think they do show a lot of, certain only specific brands, which is fine because that's who they're signed with. They're not going to go show everybody a bunch of other brands when they're getting paid by that brand, and that's part of their contract obligation. But also, you're going to have the kids that only going to use that stuff. But those are the kids that, the make fishing cool kind of thing, where they want to go down to the pond, they want to use kind of flashy stuff, they want to catch some fish and post about it. But then you're going to have the kids that are that they might have attracted to fishing from their content, but then they're going to realize that they're very, very passionate about it in a different sense, where they want to take it competitive, they want to learn more. And I think if they have that mindset, it's very easy to kind of see what's out there in the industry. I mean, you go to Tackle Warehouse and just click on brands, you're going to understand what's there. So I think it's going to depend on the kid, what they're going to want to do, who the person is, what their decision, where they want to take their fishing. Because
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're on YouTube in general, though, you're going to be, especially if you're watching the Guggens, we'll say, for example, you go on your just Discover page, you're going to have other accounts pop up.
Right.
And I mean, it's, especially if they know like the history of, of Rackley being a tournament angler, almost went pro. I mean, they're going to understand. And they're like, oh, fishing tournaments and then stuff. And it goes on and on. I mean, Perrick and John were tournament anglers. So I think it's cool. It's there's a lot more to it than what people kind of see from the outside, which is kind of interesting. And like we mentioned earlier, we're going on a huge rabbit hole here. So this one can go on and on and on. It can go on forever. But I think what's kind of cool that they've done is the kid that said fishing was stupid. Like you and I, we love fishing for the learning, the competitive, just the nature, getting out in the outdoors, and just that aspect. We don't need the flashiness of it. There's kids that say fishing is stupid until they saw stuff like this, and they're like, okay, fishing's kind of cool because it's kind of flashy, it's entertaining. It got them out there. So I think it kind of turned some people who didn't like fishing to like fishing, if that makes any sense.
100%. And then the only other thing that I think is tough sometimes for kids is that you see basically everything on YouTube. There are certain YouTubers I really like because they keep their videos a lot less cut up and spliced up than some others, where they show the struggle. I think a lot of times it's really easy for some of these, folks on YouTube, and, this goes for everybody, but basically a video becomes a highlight reel, and they watch this video and they think, oh, this guy's catching fish, every 3 or 4 minutes. Like, you don't see that it took 15 hours and 2 days or whatever to film that video, and all you see are the sick fish catches that, are back to back to back to back. Yeah. So I do think it depends on the kid, because if the kid watches that and gets inspired and really has a passion for it, they're going to go tough out those tough days. They're going to go look for other gear and, broaden their horizons. And then you are going to have some that just kind of stick with the brands they see in front of them, and that's fine too. But like I said, anybody that's out there in that space deserves all the credit in the world. I tried to make a couple YouTube videos, and I learned really quick how hard it is and how much it, I think for me, kind of it takes away from the fun of going out and fishing sometimes, because when I tried to do it, I was so worried about, is the GoPro on, the battery just died, I have to switch it, I have to switch my memory card, what's the angle, like all kinds of stuff. And it was just like more power to the people that can do that, to folks like you, because I cannot do it. I'm doing good to get a couple good pictures of a fish and get it back, and that's it. It just takes too much effort. I'll be completely honest, I'm just too lazy to do YouTube videos and stuff. That's why I stick with photography and the podcast. Those are both things that I can do, and I can set my time up right, and it doesn't necessarily take away from the fishing. But anybody that does video content deserves all the credit in the world, because it is so hard.
Yeah, no, it's kind of tough, and like I'll say I'm guilty of that. Or I'll have days where I only get like 3-4 fish. I won't get many bites, and I won't post it. But I've kind of been slowly learning how to take a day like that and break it down to how I can, mentally try to change my game to get more bites. And it's by no means good yet. I'm trying to work on it, but it's like it's a thing where you just want to put out. We always want to put out good content where people can watch fish catches, because that's what you think people want to see. But you got to try to, like you said, try to be real about it. Show them the struggles. But
I'll say that at least people like me, I like watching videos where there's the struggle in it, because I know what goes into putting together a good day and patterning fish. I'll bring up one of my favorite series, I guess, of videos all time was when Matt Streichel, SB Fishing, was trying to catch his first muskie. And if you've ever watched those videos, it is just video after video after video of not catching a muskie. And that's what muskie fishing is. It is miserable. It's terrible. It's 8-hour days where you're chucking dog toy size lures on huge rods and reels, and it's terrible, and your arms hurt. And watching those videos of him just going out and be like, is today going to be the day? And you watch this 20-minute video, and spoiler alert, today was not the day. He did not catch a muskie. But then you're invested in that that journey that somebody's on, and the struggle, how hard it is to catch fish. So sometimes I think folks that are that truly have a passion for fishing do like the content where there is a bit of a struggle to it, because it's like, okay, I'm not the only one that goes out and has bad days. I know my favorite YouTubers or my favorite people that are putting together media have those same bad days, and I'm going to watch those just like I'm going to watch the day where you wear it out and you catch 50 fish, because that's fishing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you wanted to go see how some of the pros struggle, just go and look at the results, and go look at the bottom of the results from tournaments, year by year, and see some of those huge names where you think always catch them. They don't. They don't always catch them. It's a struggle to try to put out good content, and that's why you see a lot of the guys that do it so successfully are so good at it, because they're able to put out the content where they might not have an amazing day, but they'll still make it something worthwhile, which is super interesting. But
so then I know you put out YouTube stuff. How do you not get burnt out on that? How do you get up one day and be like, I still have that passion to go out and do this, when there's so much pressure that you put on yourself? I know how it goes. I do the same thing with my photography and the podcast and stuff. You put pressure on yourself to one up yourself every time. What keeps you just going out and wanting to do that?
So for me, I don't really put pressure on myself, because I've decided, I started my YouTube channel 4 years ago, and I'm only at 700 subs, but it's because I posted 2 videos and then took 2 years hiatus because school and everything. I didn't really care for it, to be honest with you. And then I got home from an internship in December, and I was like, yeah, might as well just start posting it consistently. Why not? And basically what I just do, I don't put any pressure on myself, because if I feel pressure to do it, if it feels like a job, then I'm done. I'm not going to do it, because I do it because I enjoy it. And if I lose that, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. Basically what I do is I go out and I'll be like, hey, tomorrow weather looks really good on this lake. I think I can apply this technique. This looks like a lot of fun. Let's go make a video out of it. All I do is, put the GoPros in the kayak, click record, attach my external battery, and then I kind of forget about it until the end of the day. And sometimes I'll turn around, I'll talk. I'll put my hand over it, so when I'm editing, I can see the black little window, so I know that, hey, I said something that I think is important there. Probably not important, but I think it's important. And I'll just say, all right, put that in the video. But it's nothing glamorous. It's just kind of go out, and I just click a button when I start, and I click a button at the end. And it's just trying to show my day, and then obviously my struggle right now, but my intention is trying to teach, trying to say, I'm not a professional, I'm not an expert, but I went out and I found success here, or I failed at this, and this is why. But like, this is my view. This is what worked for me. So maybe it can help you, maybe not copy or replicate what I'm doing, but add a factor of what I did right or did wrong to help your game. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that, where I by no means want to say to somebody, this is how you should, use a jerk bait. This is how you should go crank, because 9 times out of 10, someone else is way better than me who knows how to do it a lot better. And who am I to tell you how you should use that lure? Like, because fish are they're weird. Fish are stupid. Like, stupid smart. So it's like,
we give them too much credit a lot of times. We do as anglers. We overthink everything, and it's an animal with a head this big and a brain this big. Like, it's not a rocket scientist by any means. So that's a fun part about giving. As long as you have the sincerity and the humility to know that, hey, I don't know everything. Giving tips is fun, because a lot of times there's no right and wrong way to do a certain thing. So it's just another thing in the tool belt is kind of what I basically look at. I can listen to you talk about crank, and I can listen to Clark Wendlandt talk about crankbait, and I can listen to 12 other people talk about it, and then I can internalize all that, and now I have a tool belt of the way that 12 people use this crankbait, and I can bust that out when I'm out on the water and try different things. There's no right or wrong way all the time, and that's what I have that problem sometimes too, because a lot of my podcasts are very tip heavy and I try to be informational, and I'm not a professional. I don't go out and fish a ton of tournaments. I just like catching fish, and what works for me, I want to spread that out and say, hey, give this a shot. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I don't care if you're Rick Clunn, you're Bill Dance, you're KVD, Jacob Wheeler. No one knows everything. You're never going to know everything, because one, it's almost impossible, because fish change year by year, week by week, day by day with conditions. Conditions, you can tell in recent climates over years, their climates are changing, so therefore the fish are going to change how they act. The only thing you're finding is these guys just understand how they're going to behave in certain conditions, therefore they can position themselves in a place where they can find those fish easier. Because 90% of the problem is just simply finding the fish. Once you find the fish, there's a good chance they're going to bite. There's a very good chance they're going to bite. It's just
and you have to think about it too. It's like when I think it was Jeff Sprague I talked to pretty recently, and he was like, there are fish in every inch of that lake. Like, you're not, they don't just all move over to the windblown side on a certain day. It's like there are fish everywhere. It just upping your chances and upping your odds of catching fish in that certain situation, that certain part of the lake, that certain weather, that certain time. And you're right. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Everybody does it completely differently. And like I said, I think a lot of times we give them too much credit, and we overthink a lot of things. And there's luck involved in it. We don't want to admit it, but there's 50% of this a lot of times is luck. There's a reason that nobody goes out and wins every single FLW event or every single Major League Fishing event or a Bassmaster Elites or whatever you watch. It's because there is luck involved, and the best angler technically doesn't always win. It's who stumbles on the right spot at the right time, and you can't bottle that up and put that in 10 tips. It's just put your time out there and get to casting.
Yeah, it's the ones who prepare and work hard to set themselves up as best as they can for when luck presents itself.
It's a game of odds. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's such a cool mental, philosophical kind of thing to get into when it comes to fishing, because like there's so many things you think have to happen. This is textbook. It should make sense. It should work. But like at the end of the day, if the fish doesn't want to bite, he doesn't have to bite. He can sit there and laugh at you all day long. He's not going to hit anything.
I always tell my friends and stuff, I say, there's no better feeling than when what's supposed to happen does happen. Like when you fish this spot exactly how you should, and you do put that fish in the boat, but it's the times where what's supposed to happen doesn't happen that keeps you coming back. I think that's fishing in a nutshell. Is there's no better feeling than thinking what you're doing it and executing, and then you go back the very next day and they don't cooperate, and it puts you right back at square one. It's a little piece of humble pie. It's like, hey, you don't have this completely figured out. You've upped your odds, but every day is different. So I think it's it's a little bit of both that keeps us loving this sport.
Yeah, no, it's what kind of drives the people who you see are out there and they're dedicated, putting in the time. They're actually truly passionate about it, not just, your pond hoppers, which you can be very passionate about pond hopping. Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to say people that are going to go out, once a month just to kind of, just to cast a cool looking frog. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was getting with that, but moving on to your podcast, because we talked about it a little bit. So the Tackle Talk podcast. So like, when did you realize you wanted to start this?
So I think the funny thing about that is I didn't start out to start a podcast. Like when I listened to, first of all, I had started listening to podcasts like maybe a year and a half ago. It was just something I never really listened to, never got into, but eventually, for my work and stuff like that, I'm in the truck a lot. I'm out on the road and I wanted something to listen to other than the same, oldies country station I listen to all the time. So I started to get into podcasts, started listening to sports podcasts. I listen to Pardon My Take and stuff like that all the time. And I finally, just one day it clicked where I was like, I need to find a fishing podcast. Like, it's all I think about anyway. Why don't I look for a fishing show on here? And so I did, and I listened to a couple, and nothing just really piqued my interest where it was, and this was, oh goodness, maybe a year ago at this point. So it was quite a while ago, maybe last summer, when I started looking for a show, and I just couldn't really find anything that was what I was particularly looking for, which was structured. Like, all my favorite shows had a structure to them. They had segments, they had stuff like that, where it wasn't just some guy sitting down at a microphone and, starting to blabber, which unfortunately some of these other fishing shows, they turn it into story time more than, it just seems like people don't come prepared. They sit down, they talk with their buddies about the fish they caught that weekend, and that's it. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but it's not really what I'm looking for. And I was like, I want some tips. I want gear reviews. I want unbiased opinions. I want, I don't want to hear the same brand over and over again. I just want someone to talk normally about fishing and to be informative and have a set agenda ready to go when you start the show and not a whole bunch of filler stuff. And finally I was like, I just can't figure out what I want. And so I was like, I'm just going to try and make my own. And I sat down and I recorded the first episode, and I took the format of some other shows that I really liked that weren't in the fishing space at all, and just kind of took that to fishing and was like, okay, consistency, certain segments, certain breakdowns of how the episodes are supposed to go, keeping it short. Some of the other shows that I listened to were, 2 hours long or more. And it's like, I don't have that kind of time on me. And I don't think a lot of other people do too. So I wanted to keep it to 30 minutes. I wanted just to give people information, hopefully make them better anglers, where they stop listening. They're like, wow, I'm really glad I listened to that. So I did the first couple episodes, and I was a little nervous at first because I don't have a radio voice. I just sound pretty normal. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but consistency, how that goes. Consistency is key. I just kept with it. I uploaded, one a week, every week for, almost a year now. And at some point it finally starts to take off, and people appreciate it. They appreciate the consistency. They appreciate the genuineness of it, I think, where it just kind of sounds like the guy next door talking fishing, but not about his weekend, where nobody really gives a crap about that. It's about stuff that you actually care about. So it is gear, it is tips, it is tricks. Let's do a whole episode on frog fishing. Let's do a whole episode on kayak fishing, stuff like that. So I just kind of got into it really slowly, and it sort of took off, and I'm really thankful for it. But it gives me an avenue just to blabber about fishing, which I love to do. Yeah.
No, dude, one thing I love about it, not only just the information that you put out, and I'll share screen your page here for the Instagram, is I love how professional you make this stuff look. Like, it's not just something you're just scrambling together. You're taking the time to put some of this stuff out, and you're really making it all look good. And that's what I think draws a lot of people in. So I
appreciate that. And if you scroll down, you can see the, how it started out, and slowly, hopefully more recently, they get a little better, the episode art and stuff. I'm getting a little bit more, better with Photoshop, I guess. But yeah, I'm a sucker for memes too. So there are some memes in there, but
that's what Instagram is now. It's all memes.
Yep. So I don't know. I just tried to make it as professional as I could while being in my spare bedroom in my house and not having professional equipment and stuff. So trying to bridge that gap was kind of tough, but I don't know. I enjoy it. I love hearing from people. You get the same thing, right? It's people that send you a message and say, hey, I listened to this episode. They send me a picture of the fish they caught that day because of the tips that were in that episode. And there's no better feeling in the world. And I just love that. And like I said, it's a platform that I feel like, there's a couple of us, there's you, there's me, there's a couple other podcasts that I really like and really enjoy, but it hasn't become oversaturated yet. So it's still kind of a cool, fun space. And I love the podcast area. I'm just kind of glad that, some folks like us were able to sort of get into it a little early and hopefully, teach some people some things.
Yeah. So are you not a BTL fan?
What?
Fast Talk Live?
Not really, if I'm going to be honest.
I hear you.
Yeah, it's, and it's nothing wrong with some of these shows. It's just not my cup of tea. It's not my structure. It's not, something that really scratched that itch that I was looking for when I was looking for a show. But then folks like you, I really like, because I love listening to people's conversations, like two different people's conversations all the time too. Not the same two guys going back and forth and, talking and saying the same thing that they said 4 episodes ago. They're just hoping you forgot it by now. Really having honest conversations with people, which you do, and you get some cool people on here. And I think that's the important part, is finding the niche of what your show is. So your show is guests, and it is bringing in cool people and having conversations you're not hearing anywhere else. Mine's a lot more tip heavy, a lot more gear reviewy and kind of techie and stuff like that. And, that's the thing, is you got to find a lane and go with it and not try and copy everybody else. So I think that's at least what I tried to do when I started the show.
Yeah. Have you ever listened to the Business from the Bass Boat podcast?
A couple times. Yeah.
With Adam. Yeah. I had Adam on Monday Night Live actually last night. Adam does a really good job with that industry stuff. That's
Adam Deacon, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he's a very, very intelligent individual, very passionate about it, likes the business side of things. So that's another good one that I like.
It's another good example of someone that's in a niche that needed to be filled, and you found the right guy to do it. I think Adam does that very well. So yeah, it's kind of cool. And then there's some other ones out there. There's Paddle and Fin. So there's some people that are a lot more kayak heavy. Some people that are a lot more species specific. So just smallmouth fishing and stuff like that. So it really is just kind of finding your niche and going with it. Yeah,
I hate those guys at Paddle and Fin. Bunch of jerks.
What's funny is one of them lives like right around me. It's such a small world. Brad Hicks lives in Dayton. Same thing here. It's like, what are the odds?
Yeah, I'm sure Brad's listening to this one because he was excited for this podcast. So I'm going to talk a little crap about Brad.
What's funny is I still haven't got out with him. I still need to go out fishing with Brad.
Brad's a good dude. And definitely extremely, extremely passionate. And he's a good river fisherman. He likes to chase the smallies and different things like that. And I just enjoy his pictures where he parked on the side of the river and he makes like this crazy like maniac face with his big fish. So it's, I enjoy those posts. But yeah, Brian Schiller is a huge jerk. I absolutely hate that guy. He knows it's all fun and games, but I like to poke fun at him. He's another Douglas guy, so we go back and forth. Nice. But that's a good one. There's a bunch of different good ones out there that I like. Like Josh Bertrand has one that's very laid back. It's the Anglers Happy Hour, where it's just him and his 2 buddies, where Rob's a guide and Nick's kind of like their buddy who knows how to fish-ish, but it's more just the goof, and they just talk about life and a little fishing stuff.
Yeah, obviously you got Ike with his show. You've got, some of these other ones. But what was really interesting, and not Ike, but I won't name the ones that I'm about to talk about. When I first went to start the show, and I was looking for, a show to listen to, some of the ones that were at the top of, I guess, the chart or the most suggested ones I listened to, I was like, this is not what I wanted. Like, maybe some people love it, but some of those ones that were near the top, I was just like, this isn't what I was looking for. If you're looking for a round table of 5 guys just shooting the shit, then that's great. But that really wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for a fishing show. So it's interesting that you can take a subject that is like fishing, where someone from the outside be like, fishing's fishing. What are you going to talk about? And it just spreads so thinly in so many different directions of, something you can take a topic as simple as fishing. So it's kind of the fun part. And we're just in the beginning of long form conversation and long format kind of stuff. So I'm interested to see where it goes in the next couple of years, because, this is just tip of the iceberg on this kind of stuff. Oh, yeah. And it's going to be pretty exciting to see where it moves to and the things we can do with it, see where the industry is going to go. And I'm trying to remember who actually said it, but they're pretty much saying how there's the modern society and then there's the fishing industry, and the fishing industry is like 5 to 10 years behind everybody. 100%. Yeah. Oh yeah. But it's cool to see kind of how we were making these advances. And I think, and I hate saying it because it sounds bad, but I think COVID was good for fishing.
because you saw a lot of advances for fishing to keep up with the times, because fishing is one of the only activities you could do and do professionally and abide by the guidelines. So I think that's what's really awesome about it.
Yep, I definitely think it helped the sport get some new people in that never probably would have thought of fishing, or just stumbled on it because it was one of the 4 things you were allowed to do for 5 months.
Yeah.
And then for folks like us, there's also the double-edged sword of it, where it was kind of frustrating, where because everybody is off work and you go out on a Tuesday, and I was the same thing. I worked for a professional baseball team, so it hit us really hard, and so I had a lot of free time on my hands, and you're going out and you're going down the river on a Tuesday, and there's 100 people out there fishing, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is, on one hand, it's great because there's more people outside and more people fishing, but it's like there were people in spots that I have never seen another human before in my entire life. The rivers were really crowded, the lakes were really crowded. So it's another one of those things where selfishly you're like, dang, like I don't have any place to myself anymore. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a good thing. The one thing I was kind of interested in was how it seemed to affect our industry from the tackle producer side of things, like iCast. I watched the virtual iCast, and I'm going to be honest, I was kind of disappointed in what some of these companies put out there, considering, you have a whole year to come up with new offerings and to put it out. And this is the biggest stage in the world for fishing tackle. And then some of the stuff that comes out, and it's just like, I don't know if people were having trouble with, I'm sure the supply chains and everything are so messed up and so terrible, and I can't even imagine. So getting the new products out there is hard enough when you can't even get your staples to be produced. So I get that, but it was just, I think it had an opposite effect on innovation from what I would have thought it would. All this money coming into the industry, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a cash cow. Everybody's rolling in it, and we're going to have some cool new stuff. And then this year in iCast, I was kind of like, I'm sort of disappointed in what was put out there. And I'm hoping just people didn't want to put it out yet, and new stuff is still on the horizon. It's still hush hush. And I think for some companies, I've heard that definitely is the case, that they didn't want to put it out yet, because I've heard stories of as soon as you put something out, it gets knocked off 2 hours later. So they don't want to do that yet. And I get that, but it was just really interesting to see, I would have thought the opposite from iCast, from what we got.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. I think it's reasonable what they did this year, because if you look at the supply, they have a lot of these companies, will be quite frank, is overseas. Not a lot of it is American made. So the products they get to make these baits and these different innovative stuff, you're not going to see it this year. I think it's because everything was halted due to the virus. And also you look at how it, and this is where I'm kind of like, I'm torn with, is, do you want to drop something huge in this year, where a year it's an unknown, or do you want to wait until it stabilizes, then drop it? Because it's, while sales are up 200%, a lot of people are still struggling. So you kind of look at it in kind of a weird way, where it's like, yes, sales are up, but are you still going to be able to maximize on its potential if there's a bunch of people struggling and different things like that? Do I still have you?
Yeah, you got me now. We're back.
Did you hear what I was saying at all? Or
I heard right where you got up to, like, where sales were up 200%. That's where it cut out.
Yeah. So that's where I'm torn at, is sales are up 200%. That's what they're saying. Tackle sales are booming.
Right.
But there's a lot of people and anglers that are struggling. So do you want to release it yet, or do you want to wait until things stabilize, where you know that you'll maximize the sales on? So I think if all goes well, and knock on wood, I really freaking hope it does, because I cannot stand this many people on the lakes. In 2021 for iCast, hopefully, one, it's in person. Hopefully we don't have to have those hurdles. And two, I think you're probably going to have one of the best iCasts you'll ever have, because I think you're going to see a lot of companies that are going to do better, that are going to pump out crazy dollars to get all these crazy new ideas that they had for 2 years running now, that they did not come out with this year, that they want to drop and unload on everybody now that things have stabilized. But hopefully that is the case. Hopefully it actually stabilizes. But I think that's what you're going to see. But I could be totally wrong there. But I think a lot of what people put out is they kind of went into the back of the warehouse. They're like, hey, we can kind of make this little change to that lure. So it's kind of new. It's kind of creative. Let's put that up.
That's exactly what you saw too from some of the companies I'm thinking of right off the bat.
Yeah.
Was, it was like, oh, we're gonna make the same bait, but it has a different knocker in it. It has a different sound.
Yeah.
It's the exact same body, exact same paint schemes, exact same hardware. Everything is just
Yeah.
let's put a one knocker in there instead of two BBs, and that's our new innovative product. And you're just kind of like, oh, it's not what I want out of my iCast. But I get it too, because around here they can't keep anything stocked that's a staple. Like our Cabela's here hasn't had Corrados in 6 months. Like it's not a thing. I actually stopped at Cabela's about a month ago. I was looking for a Corrado, for a new Corrado K for my cranking setup. And I went up and they don't even have like display reels anymore. Everybody's bought the reels that are off the, where you can pick it up and you can try them. They bought those too. They have 0 reels. And I went up to the guy and I was like, have you talked to your Shimano rep recently? He's like, yeah, he was in last Monday. I said, has he given you guys any idea of when you can expect any stock back in for, Ks or anything really at this point? And he said, man, honestly, he said they're not making any guarantees until 2021 for restocking stuff. I said, holy cow. Like so you're right. On the one hand, that means these companies are sitting on a lot of cash right now. They've blown through their inventory. Everything is sold. They have money, but at the same point, they're going to have to use that money to bump back up inventory and just get all of these stores all across the country that have nothing sitting on the shelf before they're going to go to innovation. So I get it. Just a weird time.
It's so weird, man. It's tough. But yeah, good luck finding any flatworms anytime in the next 6 months.
It's impossible.
Everyone was like freaking out in New York because there was none left. And I went to a local Bass Pro and I went there and I saw a whole rack of all gobies. And I was that scumbag. I bought 6 packs. I bought all of them. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm taking them. And I should have went on eBay or like the local Facebook marketplace and charged everybody $20. But
I mean, people they're price gouging right now like crazy. Around here, it's kayaks. I need a new kayak so bad. I've spent more hours fixing my kayak lately than I have been on the kayak, because it's just got giant holes in the bottom that I keep plastic welding and they keep coming open. And we're in shallow water around here, so you're hitting rocks, you're dragging, it's a lot of that kind of stuff. So it'll last like a trip or two and I have to plastic weld it again. And like the 2 or 3 models of kayak that I'm looking at getting, because I'm just going to buy something random, this next kayak's going to last me a bit, they're nowhere to be found, and the manufacturers will not even give you a remote estimate on when they're going to start making again or when they're going to have inventory in stock. And so people then are on like Facebook Marketplace and you see a Sun Dolphin for $700 and you're like, what is going on?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Good grief. Well, dude, let me ask you, because we're going to wrap this up in a little bit here, but what are your future goals with this? Whether it be the podcast, YouTube, industry, whatever related, where do you want to take it? Where do you want to, see yourself go?
Well, all my stuff kind of started on Instagram. I really it got to the point where when I fell heavy into fishing, I would post pictures of fish all the time on my regular Instagram page, like with all my normal buddies and friends. And finally people were like, we get it, bro. Like, you fish, quit posting pictures of fish, And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start a second Instagram just to basically be a photo album for myself and to keep the pictures of my fish and not annoy the piss out of my friends where they're like, not wanting to talk to me more because all they see are fishing pictures. So I started that second Instagram page, and, over 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it was, it just kind of got a little bit of a following. And I don't really have any goals for that kind of stuff. It's just to continue I love photography. And I got into that about the same time I got really heavy into fishing. And I love the idea of combining the two, because when you go out and you spend 12 hours a day and you catch this one nice picture-worthy fish, I love the idea of you have 30 seconds with that fish to get a clean, cool photograph of it before that thing has to go back in the water. It's a living, breathing thing. You can't just sit there like these people that do horizon photography or photography of bridges or whatever. That bridge is going to be there all day. You can take 10,000 pictures of it until you get a nice one. Mm-hmm. With a fish, it's a lot different. It's a lot more of a challenge. So I really like that. And I like the idea of every fish being a memory that I get to preserve. As corny as that sounds, that's how I look at it. It's, I want to take a picture that does the fish justice, and does justice to all the work that I probably put in to get to that fish. So if I waited, 5 miles upstream and caught one, 19-inch smallmouth, I want a picture where I can remember that 19-inch smallmouth for the rest of my life and say, hey, try and do justice, because people that look in from the outside and they're like, why do you spend 12 hours a day hiking through mud and these gross rivers around here to go catch fish? And I try and take a picture that does justice to this is why I do it. So I really like that aspect. And that's really all I do with that Instagram page, is just try and take pictures that do justice to the fish I catch. And then on the podcast, it started out very not planned and, just kind of on a whim, and it's got a following. So I feel like that's where I want to put a lot more of my future plans, is to continue to grow that show, to continue to bring on good guests, to have, good topics and conversation. And I basically just promised the people listening, I'm never going to just flip on a microphone and start rambling. Like, I'm going to have a purpose for talking. I'm going to make it concise. I'm going to break it down into terms that your normal weekend warrior can understand. I'm not going to talk over your head. And, hopefully that's kind of my avenue, I think, to get some information out there and to try and grow the sport and to influence people and make them better anglers. So just consistency. That's really my goal with the podcast, is to keep, we upload every Tuesday morning, Tackle Talk Tuesday, real easy to remember. And, I just want to keep that consistency, keep those episodes coming, and, hopefully have something that I can be proud of when I look down the road.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you're doing a great job at it, and I think you keep it up, and who knows how far you can take that thing, man. So I
appreciate it.
Yeah.
What about you? What with this show, what are you looking for in the future?
Oh man, I am so week to week, but at the same point in time, I would like to keep this going for a long time because I do enjoy it. Pretty much the gist of it is I'm going to keep doing it and trying to make it better and ramping it up to the point where if it feels like a chore to me, that's when I'll stop. So it's pretty much, I'm going to keep doing it until, either I'm in the grave or I'm, or I get sick of it. It's one or the other.
Yep.
And then, but there's some pretty big plans coming up that I'm not allowed to release just yet that are in store for the podcast. So we're going to be doing some pretty cool stuff, and
nice.
Not anytime soon, but probably I give it a couple months down the road. But cool. There's some things we're going to apply that I think are going to be pretty cool. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited for it. It's a fun little gig. It's not a job by any means. So it'd be
That's
cool.
What I always tell people, like, I can sit here and talk fishing with anybody all day long till I'm blue in the face. Like, it's something that I'll never get tired of. And I think a lot of people in the industry are the exact same way. Like, they always welcome the chance to talk with someone and just kind of, shoot the bull about fishing. So and everybody seems to like listening to it for one reason or another. So that's always great too.
100%, dude. 100%. Yeah. So we're gonna wrap it up. But dude, I really want to get you back on the pod here soon. We might have to get you on for a live session. I think that would be pretty cool. We'll get you on with Andrew, and then we'll just fire a bunch of different topics, and we'll get real deep into it, and that should be a lot of fun. But two quick questions for you that we're gonna wrap things up with. First question: how the heck did you get Bill Dance in your introduction?
What's funny? First of all, Bill is a insanely nice guy. Like, you want to talk about someone that is as big as the industry itself, and you would have no idea if you bumped into him on the street. He is the nicest guy in the world, and it just happens to be one of those things where it's like, how this goes. You get guests and stuff on here too. It's amazing what happens when you just ask the right people at the right time, the right way, and you're sincere, and you go about it. It's just some people just don't take the initiative to try and, like, I had a problem and I wanted to solve it. I love Bill Dance. I've loved him since I was a kid, and I always, when I started this podcast, like, how cool would it be to have my childhood, idol be the one that kicks off every show. So I just, kept at it till I made it happen, and he made it super easy. It was not a chore by any means. It was just getting a hold of the right people at the right time, and he made it happen. And again, kudos to him, the nicest guy in the world. And it just makes me smile every time I start off an episode. And it's like, okay, we set the tone the right way here with the person that I grew up watching, and, probably had a big part in me wanting to continue fishing throughout my childhood. So it just makes me happy every time I get to play it.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty sweet. And I thought it was ironic today because 5 hours ago, I'm looking at it right now, he followed the podcast on Instagram.
Nice.
I thought that was freaking sweet. I'm like, all right, I made it. I can quit now. I'm good. Bill Dan followed me. But no, that's awesome, dude. But we're gonna wrap it up with this question right here for you. And I'd like to ask everybody this: is if you could sit down and have dinner with 3 different people to pick their brain. So you want to invite 3 different people. They don't have to be the fishing industry. They don't have to be alive. They could be way back in history. You just want to sit down, have a beer, a steak. You want to pick their brain. Who are you inviting?
Oh my goodness. I would probably say my grandpa to start out. My grandpa was the first boat I was ever on. They had like a trailer down in Florida that we'd go to on spring break, and they lived on the Harris chain down there in Florida.
Ooh.
So yeah, I mean, that was some of the first fishing I remember, and he passed away when I was fairly young. So getting a chance to chat with him again, I think just because I would like to show him, because I think I was 9 when he passed away. So to show him the angler and person, but I mean, I think it'd be cool to show him like, hey, you kind of started to like this spark in me, and look how far I've taken it. I think that would be really cool. So I'll say my grandpa. Oh my goodness, I would say I'll probably put Bill on there, to be honest. I'd love to sit down with Bill and have a conversation, and mainly because, again, you grow up and you watch like Bill Dance bloopers. That is high peak comedy for us fishing guys, is watching Bill, and just, I'm sure he gets tired of asking about him all the time, but just being like, if you film your whole life fishing, pretty much some funny stuff is going to happen to you. And luckily they have all of those from Bill on tape, and they can put a compilation of them together, and we get to watch them. So I would love to talk to Bill and poke into more of his serious angler side. People, sometimes they think, oh, he goes out on some stocked pond and catches fish from that boat. It's like, no, he was a darn good angler back in the day. So he knows what he's talking about. He has the experience. He has the expertise. So I think that would be really cool for number 2. And then number 3, honestly, I kind of want to stick to fishing here, because I think that would be the most fun conversation to have with these people. And I might put Kevin on there, Kevin Van Dam, just because, again, you want to talk about someone that changed the sport. And, yes. And I've read a lot recently. There's been some stuff out in pop culture about like giving people their roses while they're still alive is a big thing that we don't do a lot of times. A lot of times you wait to see after these guys are gone, we appreciate them. And Kevin is a guy that not only is still here, but is still young and is just scratching the tip of the iceberg on what he's probably going to do for the industry too. So from like the business side of things, of me just being a business nerd, I would love to talk to him about that, because nobody has branded themselves. He did to fishing what like Michael Jordan did to shoes and to basketball, just his brand everywhere, his face everywhere, stuck all over the things. So picking his brain on how he did that, and what was his motivation behind that, and what he thinks led to basically KVD being on everything and being synonymous with bass fishing at this point. So you kind of have some past and present there with Bill and Kevin. I think would be a cool conversation. And obviously bring my grandpa in there too, to kind of talk to him. I think those 3 would be so much fun.
Yeah. Now that'd be actually a pretty cool like segment for your podcast, something like that, with the like give a rose segment or something like that. Take like 2 minutes, something like that, just to credit.
And same with Bill. And then, all these guys, Jimmy Houston, Roland Martin, all these guys that are still here and still around, that, you have to cherish, and you have to be thankful for that time with these guys, because like I said, unfortunately, I think a lot of times people wait till it's too late to appreciate some of the people that are still here and still right under our nose. And I think that's important, because these guys are still from the era where they revolutionized the sport. I mean, this is where everything took a turn. We saw, the people are around today where regular bass boats weren't even a thing when they were young and they were fishing. Like the amount of evolution that has happened in these people's lifetime in our sport is insane. So I think while you still have them here as a resource, you need to have those conversations with them. You need to appreciate everything that's happened in the past 60, 70 years in our sport. And I think it would be cool to talk to those guys about it.
100%, dude. I like that answer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, dude, I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day. We've been talking about an hour now, well over an hour if you want to include our offline conversation. But, dude, I really appreciate it. I thank you for taking the time out, and I can't wait to have you back on the show.
Hey, no problem. Like I always tell people, you don't have to twist my arm to talk fishing, so I'm good. Whenever you want to talk again, I'm always game.
Of course, man. Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right, take care. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that podcast there with Andrew. Talked about a whole lot of stuff, many rabbit holes, as you guys do thoroughly enjoy when we go on different tangents there. I thoroughly enjoy it because one, it's not something that we expect. I usually create a loose outline for majority of podcasts. I usually do not ever wing it, but I love how when you get off track at different things, and you talk about different segments, and you hear different people's opinions, and that's something I value. So that was pretty cool. Hope you guys enjoyed that. You valued that. A cool episode coming up Friday. We're having on Mr. Kurt Smits, who is the 2017 kayak bass fishing, national champion. We're going to get him on and talk a little bit, and that will be up on Friday. As a note for next Monday's Monday Night Live, it is so far planned. We are supposed to have Monday Night Live, but it might have a slight chance of getting canceled. That is all due to the dependency on the campsite. I will be at the St. Lawrence River. If the connection is good, we will have Monday Night Live. If the connection sucks, we will have to postpone until probably that Friday or the next Monday. We'll just have to cancel for the week. But thank you guys again for watching and listening. Go down below in the description. Follow Andrew on all social medias. Thank you guys again, and we will talk soon.